Mom, I feel like a stranger in my own family. Violet's voice cracks through the phone, shattering the silence of our kitchen. My heart plummets. Sweetheart, what happened?
Dad.
He's not here. Some woman named Maya told me to leave. She was so mean, Mom. I gripped the counter, knuckles white. Where are you now? At the hotel across the street. Mom, can I come home? Of course, baby. I'll book you the first flight back. Just stay put, okay? I hang up, fury rising like bile in my throat. My name is Lena, and I've just discovered my husband's betrayal in the worst possible way through our 11-year-old daughter. I dial Elliot's number, pacing the kitchen floor. 1 ring.
2.
3. Hey, babe. Everything okay? His casual tone ignites my anger further.
No, Elliot.
Everything is not okay. Where the hell are you? At work, of course. What's going on? Really? Because Violet just called me in tears from a hotel in Seattle. Apparently, some woman named Maya sent her away from your apartment. Care to explain? Silence stretches between us, heavy with unspoken truths. Lena, I can explain dash. Save it, I snap. I'm bringing our daughter home. We'll discuss this when you decide to remember you have a family. I hang up before he can respond, hands shaking as I book Violet's return flight. As I finish, my phone buzzes with a text from Clara, my mother-in-law. Heard from Elliot. This wouldn't have happened if you'd moved to Seattle with him. Families should stick together. I resist the urge to hurl my phone across the room. Instead, I type a terse reply. You're right, Clara. Families should stick together. Shame your son didn't get the memo. Blocking her number feels like a small victory. I take a deep breath, trying to center myself before calling Violet back. She answers on the first ring. Mom, hey, sweetie. I've booked your flight home for tomorrow morning. The hotel has your reservation for tonight, okay? Okay, she says, her voice small. Mom, why didn't Dad want to see me? My heart breaks all over again. Oh, honey, your dad loves you very much. He's just made some mistakes. We'll figure this out together, I promise. After reassuring Violet and making sure she's settled, I end the call and sink into a kitchen chair. The house feels too big, too empty. Photos of our once happy family mock me from every wall. My phone buzzes again. A text from my best friend, Sarah. Hey girl. Saw Elliot tagged in some pics with a woman named Maya. Thought you should know. Call me if you need anything. I click the link with trembling fingers. There, in full color, is my husband with his arms around a statuesque brunette. They're laughing, carefree, while our daughter cries in a hotel room across the street. Something snaps inside me. The fear and uncertainty of the past few months crystallize into a cold, hard resolve. Elliot thinks he can have it all, a family at home and a mistress in Seattle. He's about to learn how wrong he is. I stand up, a plan already forming. First stop, Clara's house. It's time she learned exactly what kind of man her precious son has become. And then, well, Elliot and his little friend Maya are in for one hell of a surprise. As I grab my keys and head for the door, I catch a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back at me isn't the same one who sent her daughter off to visit her father this morning. This woman's eyes blaze with determination. Watch out, Elliot. Your comfortable little world is about to come crashing down. I pace the living room, phone clutched in my hand, waiting for Elliot to call back. When it finally rings, I answer on the first buzz. Lena, I can explain everything. Elliot starts, his voice strained. Oh, I'm sure you can. I spit back. Start with why our daughter was turned away by some woman at your apartment. It's not what you think. Maya's just a colleague dash. A colleague who answers your door and sends away your child? Try again, Elliot. He sighs heavily. Look, things have been crazy at work. I completely forgot Violet was coming. Maya was just dropping off some files dash. At 8 p.m. on a Saturday? I interrupt, my voice dripping with sarcasm. We had a deadline, he insists. I'm sorry about the mix-up with Violet. I'll make it up to her, I promise. I laugh bitterly. You're sorry about the mix-up? How about being sorry for lying to your family? Lena, please. You're blowing this out of proportion. I love you and Violet. You know that. His words, once comforting, now feel hollow. I'm about to respond when my phone beeps with an incoming call. Clara. Your mother's calling. I tell Elliot. I'm sure she can't wait to tell me how this is all my fault. I switch calls before he can respond. Hello, Clara. Lena, I just spoke with Elliot, she starts, her tone accusatory. How could you let this happen? I grip the phone tighter. Excuse me? If you had moved to Seattle with Elliot like I suggested, none of this would have happened. Family should stick together. You're right, Clara, I say, struggling to keep my voice level. Family should stick together. Maybe you should remind your son of that. Don't you dare blame Elliot, she snaps. He's working hard to provide for you and Violet. The least you could do is support him. Support him? I echo incredulously. By letting him live a double life in Seattle while Violet and I sit at home waiting? You're being ridiculous, Clara scoffs. Elliot would never dash. Never what, Clara?
Cheat? Lie?
Because from where I'm standing, that's exactly what he's doing. There's a pause on the other end of the line. When Clara speaks again, her voice is ice cold. You need to think very carefully about your next move, Lena. Don't do anything rash that you'll regret. The line goes dead. I stare at the phone, fury and frustration boiling inside me. How dare they? How dare Elliot lie to my face? And how dare Clara defend him? I sink onto the couch, my mind racing. I need answers, real ones, not the half-truths and excuses Elliot's been feeding me. And I know just where to start. I pull up my laptop and open Facebook, searching for Maya's profile. It doesn't take long to find her. She's not exactly hiding. My stomach churns as I scroll through photo after photo of her and Elliot together. Dinners, hikes, even a weekend trip to Vancouver. All while he told me he was working late or away on business. The final straw is a picture from just last week. Maya and Elliot, arms around each other, grinning at the camera. The caption reads, "Home sweet home with my love." Something inside me snaps. I've been a fool, believing Elliot's lies, making excuses for his absences. No more. I pick up my phone and dial Sarah's number. She answers on the second ring. Hey, girl. You okay? I've been worried since I sent that text. I need your help, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. I'm going to Seattle. What? Lena, are you sure that's a good idea? No, I admit. But I need to see for myself. I need proof. Sarah is quiet for a moment. Okay, she finally says. What do you need from me? Can you watch Violet when she gets back tomorrow? I don't want her involved in this mess any more than she already is. Of course. And Lena? Be careful. I end the call and start packing a bag. Elliot thinks he can have it all, a family at home and a mistress in Seattle. He's about to learn how wrong he is. As I zip up my suitcase, a plan begins to form. It's time to show Elliot, Maya, and Clara exactly who they're dealing with. They want a family drama? I'll give them one they'll never forget. The Seattle skyline looms before me as I step out of the taxi. My heart races, a mix of anger and anticipation coursing through my veins. I'm here for answers, and I won't leave without them. I check into a hotel near Elliot's apartment, dropping off my bag before heading out. It's early evening, and the streets are alive with people heading home from work. I wonder if Elliot is among them, oblivious to the storm about to hit. As I round the corner to the street, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Sarah. Violet's safe with me. How are you holding up? I type back quickly. I'm okay. About to do some recon. We'll update you later. Taking a deep breath, I approach Elliot's building. It's sleek and modern, nothing like our cozy home back in Portland. I spot a woman leaving and quickly catch the door before it closes. Inside, I scan the directory, finding Elliot's name next to apartment 7B. My finger hovers over the buzzer. What if he's there? What if Maya answers? I shake off the doubt.
I've come too far to back down now.
Before I can press it, the elevator dings. I turn, and there she is, Maya, in the flesh. She's even more beautiful than in the photos, and my stomach twists with a mixture of jealousy and rage. She doesn't notice me as she checks her mailbox, humming softly. I clear my throat. Excuse me, are you Maya? She looks up, startled. Yes, can I help you? I force a smile. I'm an old friend of Elliot's. I was in town and thought I'd surprise him. Is he home? Maya's face lights up. Oh, he's still at work, but he should be home soon. Why don't you come up and wait? I'm sure he'd love to see you. The irony of her invitation isn't lost on me. I nod, following her into the elevator. As we ride up, Maya chatters away. So, how do you know Elliot? We go way back, I say vaguely. How long have you two been together? Almost a year now, she beams. It's been wonderful. Elliot's such an amazing man. My heart sinks.
A year.
He's been living this double life for a year. We enter the apartment, and I'm immediately struck by how lived in it feels. Photos of Maya and Elliot cover the walls, their life together on full display. There's no trace of Violet or me anywhere. Maya offers me a drink, which I decline. As she busies herself in the kitchen, I wander the living room, taking in every detail. On the coffee table, I spot a framed photo of Maya and Elliot at what looks like a company party. The caption reads, Elliot Johnson and Maya Chen, Employee of the Year Awards. That was such a great night, Maya says, coming up behind me. Elliot's been doing amazing work at the firm. They're talking about making him partner soon. I turn to her, unable to contain myself any longer. And what about his family? Has he told you about them? Maya's smile falters. Family? I don't understand. His wife, Lena? His daughter, Violet? Ring any bells? The color drains from Maya's face. Wife? Daughter? No, that's impossible. Elliot's divorced. He told me. He lied, I say, my voice breaking. To both of us. Maya stumbles back, collapsing onto the couch. Who are you? She whispers. I'm Lena, Elliot's wife. The silence that follows is deafening. Maya stares at me, shock and disbelief etched across her face. Then, slowly, understanding dawns in her eyes. The little girl, she murmurs. Last weekend, she called him Dad.
I NOD, tilstretning to spill.
That was Violet, our daughter. Maya covers her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I'm so sorry, she sobs. I had no idea. He told me, God, he told me so many lies. As I watch her break down, my anger shifts. Maya isn't the enemy here. She's another victim of Elliot's deceit. I sit beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. We've both been played, I say softly. She looks up at me, mascara streaking her cheeks. What do we do now? Before I can answer, we hear a key in the lock. The door swings open, and there stands Elliot, briefcase in hand, frozen in shock as he takes in the scene before him. Lena, he gasps. What are you doing here? I stand, squaring my shoulders. Hello, Elliot. I think it's time we all had a talk, don't you? The drive to Clara's house feels interminable. My hands grip the steering wheel, knuckles white, as I rehearse what I'll say. How do you tell a mother her son is a lying, cheating bastard? I pull into Clara's driveway, steeling myself for the confrontation ahead. Before I can even knock, the door swings open. Well, look who finally decided to grace us with her presence, Clara says, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I bite back a retort. We need to talk, Clara. It's about Elliot. She ushers me inside, her face a mask of concern. What's happened? Is he all right? Physically?
He's fine.
Morally? That's another story. Clara's eyes narrow. What are you implying, Lena? I take a deep breath. Elliot's been lying to us. He's living with another woman in Seattle. Her name is Maya. The color drains from Clara's face. For a moment, I think she might faint. Then her expression hardens. That's ridiculous. Elliot would never dash. I saw it with my own eyes, Clara. I was in Seattle. I met Maya. Clara sinks into an armchair, shaking her head. There must be some mistake. Some misunderstanding. I pull out my phone, bringing up the photos I'd saved from Maya's social media. Look, I say, handing it to her. This is no misunderstanding. Clara scrolls through the images, her hands trembling. I watch as denial gives way to shock, then to anger. That bastard, she whispers. How could he do this? To me? To Violet? I say, my voice cracking. I've been asking myself the same question. Clara looks up at me, tears in her eyes. Lena, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Her apology catches me off guard. I'd expected more resistance, more denial. But the pain in her eyes is genuine. I should have seen it, she continues. All those late nights, the business trips. I defended him, made excuses for him. God, I even blamed you. We were both blind, I say softly. He fooled us all. Clara stands suddenly, pacing the room. We can't let him get away with this. He needs to face consequences. I nod, a plan already forming. I agree.
But we need to be smart about this.
Elliot's always been good at talking his way out of trouble. What did you have in mind? Clara asks, a glint of determination in her eye. A family gathering, I say. Here at your house. We'll invite Elliot and Maya under the guise of reconciliation. Then we expose him in front of everyone. Clara considers this for a moment. It's risky. He might not come if he suspects anything. That's where you come in, I explain. He'll listen to you. Tell him you want to help patch things up between us. Make it seem like you're on his side. A slow smile spreads across Clara's face. I always said you were clever, Lena. All right, I'm in. We spend the next hour planning, ironing out details. As I prepare to leave, Clara catches my arm. Lena, wait. I owe you an apology. For years, I've been hard on you, critical of how you've handled things with Elliot and Violet. I was wrong. I'm stunned by her admission. Thank you, Clara. That means a lot. She squeezes my hand. We're family, and family sticks together, especially when one of our own betrays us. As I drive home, I feel a weight lift from my shoulders. I'd come to Clara's house expecting a fight, but I'm leaving with an ally. For the first time since this nightmare began, I feel a glimmer of hope. My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah. Violet's asking when you'll be back. Everything okay? I type back. On my way. Things are looking up. I'll explain everything soon. I smile to myself. Elliot thinks he's won, that he can have his cake and eat it too. But he's about to learn a hard lesson. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, especially when that woman has her mother-in-law on her side. The stage is set. Now, it's time to bring down the curtain on Elliot's little charade. And I can't wait for the final act. The kitchen table is covered in notes and lists as Clara and I finalize our plan. We've been at it for hours, meticulously crafting every detail of the upcoming family gathering. Are you sure about this, Lena? Clara asks, her voice tinged with concern. Once we set this in motion, there's no going back. I meet her gaze unwavering. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Elliot needs to face the consequences of his actions. Clara nods, a mix of sadness and determination in her eyes. All right then, I'll make the call. As she dials Elliot's number, I feel my heart racing. This is it. The point of no return. Elliot? It's Mom, Clara says, her voice warm and inviting. I've been thinking, we need to have a family gathering. It's been too long since we've all been together. I watch as she masterfully plays her part, weaving a tale of reconciliation and family bonds. It's almost scary how convincing she is. Yes, of course, Lena and Violet will be there, she continues, shooting me a knowing look. It'll be good for all of us to clear the air, don't you think? And why don't you bring Maya? It's time we all got to know her better. My breath catches in my throat. Will he take the bait? Clara's face breaks into a smile. Wonderful. We'll see you both next Saturday then. I can't wait. As she hangs up, we exchange a triumphant look. Phase 1, complete. Now for the guest list, I say, pulling out my phone. We need the right mix of people. Family, close friends, maybe even a few of Elliot's colleagues. Clara raises an eyebrow. Colleagues? Isn't that risky? It's crucial, I explain. We're not just exposing his personal betrayal, but his professional lies too. He's been using work as an excuse for his absences. His coworkers should know the truth. We spend the next hour carefully selecting attendees, each chosen for maximum impact. By the time we're done, the guest list reads like a who's who of Elliot's life. What about Violet? Clara asks softly. Are you sure you want her there for this? I pause, considering. The thought of Violet witnessing the confrontation makes my stomach churn. But keeping her in the dark feels wrong too. She deserves to know the truth. I say finally. But we'll have Sarah take her out just before the big reveal. She doesn't need to see the ugly details. Clara squeezes my hand. You're a good mother, Lena. Violet's lucky to have you. As evening falls, we put the finishing touches on our plan. Every detail is accounted for, from the seating arrangement to the exact moment of revelation. There's just one more thing, Clara says, disappearing into her study. She returns with a small box, which she hands to me. Inside is a USB drive. What's this? I ask. Insurance, she replies grimly. I've been doing some digging of my own. That drive contains financial records, emails, hotel receipts. Everything we need to prove Elliot's deception beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Isser her, sant.
Clara, I don't know what to say. She smiles sadly. You don't need to say anything. We're family, remember? And family protects its own. As I drive home, the weight of the USB drive heavy in my pocket, I feel a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Anger, sadness, but also a fierce determination. Elliot thought he could play us all for fools. He's about to learn how wrong he was. I pull into my driveway, spotting Violet through the window. She's laughing at something Sarah said, her face carefree and innocent. For a moment, I hesitate. Am I doing the right thing? But then I remember the pain in her voice when she called from Seattle, the confusion and hurt in her eyes every time Elliot cancels plans.
No, this isn't just about me.
It's about protecting my daughter, showing her that love shouldn't mean sacrifice and lies. I take a deep breath and head inside. The stage is set, the players are in place. In 1 week, Elliot's carefully constructed house of cards will come tumbling down, and I'll be there to watch it fall. Clara's house buzzes with nervous energy as guests arrive for the family gathering. I stand by the window, watching cars pull up, my heart pounding with each new arrival. Sarah squeezes my hand reassuringly before leading Violet out for their special girls' day. My daughter's excited chatter fades, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the weight of what's to come. They're here, Clara whispers, appearing at my side. I turn to see Elliot's car pulling into the driveway, Maya in the passenger seat. My stomach churns at the sight of them together, all smiles and casual intimacy. Ready? Clara asks, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I nod, steeling myself. As I'll ever be. We move to greet them at the door, our faces masks of welcoming smiles. Elliot hugs his mother, then turns to me with an awkward half-embrace. Lena, you remember Maya? He says, gesturing to the woman beside him. I extend my hand, noting the flicker of confusion in Maya's eyes. Of course. Welcome, Maya. So glad you could join us. As we lead them into the living room, I catch Elliot's puzzled glance at the gathered crowd. Colleagues mingle with family friends, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. Quite a turnout, Mom, Elliot remarks, his casual tone belied by the tension in his shoulders. Clara smiles tightly. Well, it has been so long since we've all been together. I thought it was time to catch up properly. The next hour passes in a blur of small talk and forced pleasantries. I watch Elliot and Maya, noting their subtle exchanges, the way they unconsciously lean towards each other. It's like watching actors in a play, completely unaware that the script is about to change dramatically. Finally, Clara calls for everyone's attention, raising her glass in a toast. To family, she says, her eyes meeting mine. And to truth. That's my cue. I stand, my legs trembling slightly as I move to the center of the room. I'd like to say something if I may. I begin, my voice stronger than I feel. Elliot shifts uncomfortably, but Maya smiles encouragingly, oblivious to what's coming. For the past year, I've been living a lie. I continue, my gaze sweeping the room before landing on Elliot. We all have, thanks to the man I thought was my faithful husband. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. Elliot's face drains of color as he realizes what's happening. Lena, what are you doing? He hisses, but I press on. Elliot has been leading a double life, I announce, my voice gaining strength. While claiming to be working long hours in Seattle, he's actually been living with another woman. A woman who had no idea he had a wife and daughter waiting at home. All eyes turn to Maya, who looks stricken.
What?
No, that's not. Elliot. Elliot stands, his hands raised placatingly. Now, wait a minute. This is all a misunderstanding dash. Is it? Clara interjects, her voice cold. She produces the USB drive, connecting it to the TV. Perhaps these will clear things up. Images flood the screen. Elliot and Maya at various events, financial records showing joint purchases, emails discussing their life together. With each new revelation, Elliot's protests grow weaker. Maya stumbles back, tears streaming down her face. You're married? You have a child? How could you? Maya, please, I can explain dash, Elliot starts, but she cuts him off with a slap that echoes through the suddenly silent room. Don't you dare, she snarls, pushing past him and fleeing the house. Elliot turns to me, his face a mix of anger and desperation. Are you happy now? You've ruined everything. I meet his gaze steadily.
No, Elliot.
You did that all on your own. The room erupts into chaos as guests react to the unfolding drama. Some console Maya outside, others confront Elliot with questions and accusations. Through it all, I stand firm, supported by Clara's unwavering presence. As Elliot's carefully constructed world crumbles around him, I feel a weight lift from my shoulders. The truth is out, the lies exposed. It's painful and messy, but it's real. And for the first time in months, I can breathe freely. The confrontation I've dreaded and planned for is here, raw and unfiltered. As I watch Elliot's facade crumble, I know there's no going back. But I'm ready for whatever comes next. Because now, finally, we're dealing with the truth. The days following the confrontation pass in a blur of phone calls, hushed conversations, and tearful explanations. I shield Violet from the worst of it, but she's perceptive enough to know something has fundamentally changed. Is Dad coming home? She asks one night, her small voice piercing the darkness of her bedroom. I sit on the edge of her bed, stroking her hair. No, sweetheart. Dad made some choices that mean he can't be with us right now. She nods, her eyes over again. Yes, partly. But it's complicated, Violet. The most important thing is that I love you, and I'm here for you. Always. As Violet drifts off to sleep, I check my phone. Another missed call from Elliot. I delete it without listening to the voicemail. The next morning, Clara calls. Have you seen the news? I turn on the TV, and there it is, Elliot's face plastered across the screen. The headline reads, Local businessman caught in double life scandal. Oh my God, I whisper. It gets worse, Clara says grimly. Keep watching. The news anchor continues. Sources close to Johnson's firm reveal that he's been using company resources to fund his secret life in Seattle. An internal investigation is underway, and Johnson has been placed on indefinite leave. I sink onto the couch, stunned. I wanted Elliot to face consequences, but this is beyond anything I imagined. My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah. Maya's gone public. Check her Instagram. With trembling fingers, I pull up Maya's profile. Her latest post is a long, raw confession. She details how Elliot deceived her, how she had no idea about his family. The comments are a mix of sympathy and judgment, with many calling for Elliot's head. As the day progresses, the fallout intensifies. Elliot's colleagues distance themselves. Old friends express their shock and disappointment. Even his golf buddies, once so quick to cover for him, now publicly denounce his actions. By evening, I'm emotionally exhausted. That's when the doorbell rings. It's Maya. She stands on my porch, looking small and broken. I'm so sorry, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. For a moment, I consider slamming the door in her face. But the pain in her eyes mirrors my own, and I find myself inviting her in. We sit in the kitchen, two women united by betrayal, sipping tea and sharing stories. Maya tells me about her whirlwind romance with Elliot, how he painted himself as a lonely divorce, how she fell for his lies hook, line, and sinker. I feel so stupid, she says, wiping away tears. I reach across the table, taking her hand. You're not stupid, Maya. Elliot is a master manipulator. We both fell for it. As Maya leaves, we share a hug, an unexpected moment of solidarity in the chaos. The next day brings more upheaval. Elliot's firm announces his termination, citing gross misconduct. His carefully cultivated professional reputation lies in tatters. That afternoon, I receive a call from an unknown number. It's Elliot, his voice ragged and desperate. Lena, please. I've lost everything. My job, my friends, my reputation. I need you. I need our family. I close my eyes, steadying myself against the wave of emotions his plea evokes. You should have thought of that before, Elliot. You made your choices. Now you have to live with them. But what about Violet? She needs her father. She needs stability and honesty, I counter. Two things you've proven incapable of providing. As I hang up, I feel a strange mix of sadness and relief. Elliot's world has crumbled, just as I wanted. But the victory feels hollow, tainted by the pain it's caused Violet. That night, as I tuck Violet into bed, she asks, Mom, are we going to be okay? I smile, pulling her close. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be strong and brave and honest with each other. Always. As I turn out the light, I realize that this is the real victory, not Elliot's downfall, but the chance to build something new and true with my daughter. The reckoning is over. Now it's time to look forward. The moving truck rumbles away, leaving Violet and me standing in front of our new home. It's smaller than our old house, but brighter somehow, filled with possibility. What do you think, sweetie? I ask, squeezing Violet's hand. She looks up at me, a tentative smile on her face. It's different, but I like it. As we walk through the rooms, unpacking boxes and arranging furniture, I feel a weight lifting from my shoulders. This space is ours, untainted by lies and betrayal. Clara arrives in the afternoon, arms laden with groceries and a housewarming gift. I thought you could use some help, she says, pulling me into a warm embrace. We work together, the three of us, turning the empty house into a home. Violet's laughter echoes through the rooms as she and Clara debate the perfect spot for her stuffed animals. It's a sound I haven't heard in far too long. That evening, as Clara prepares to leave, she pulls me aside. Lena, I want you to know how proud I am of you. You've shown incredible strength through all of this. Tears prick my eyes. Thank you, Clara. I couldn't have done it without you. She cups my face in her hands. Your family, dear. Always remember that. The next few weeks fly by in a whirlwind of new routines and adjustments. Violet starts at her new school, making friends with an ease that amazes me. I throw myself into job hunting, determined to build a stable future for us. It's not all smooth sailing. There are nights when Violet cries for her father, and days when the weight of single parenthood feels overwhelming. But we persevere, growing stronger with each challenge we overcome. One sunny afternoon, as I'm scrolling through job listings, my phone rings. It's an art gallery I'd interviewed with last week.
Lena?
This is Margot from the Riverside Gallery. We'd like to offer you the position of assistant curator. My heart soars. It's not just a job, it's a chance to reconnect with my passion for art, a part of myself I'd set aside years ago. That evening, Violet and I celebrate with a picnic in our small backyard. As we lie on the blanket, looking up at the stars, Violet turns to me.
Mom?
Are you happy? I consider her question carefully. I am, sweetheart. It's been a tough journey, but I'm happy. Are you? She nods, snuggling closer.
Yeah.
I miss Dad sometimes, but I like our new life. I hold her tight, marveling at her resilience. We've both grown so much in these past months. The next day, as I'm preparing for my first day at the gallery, I receive a text from Maya. Starting my new job today, too. Thank you for everything. Wishing you and Violet all the best. I smile, realizing that our paths have diverged, but we're both moving forward. I send back a simple good luck before turning my phone off. As I drop Violet off at school, she hugs me tightly. I'm proud of you, Mom, she whispers. Those 5 words fill me with a warmth that lingers as I walk into the gallery, ready to start this new chapter of our lives. That evening, I stand in our living room, taking in the space we've created. Photos of Violet and me cover the walls, along with her artwork and mementos from our fresh start. There's no trace of Elliot here, no shadows of our past life. I think back to that fateful phone call from Violet in Seattle, the moment that set this all in motion. The pain and betrayal are still there, a dull ache in my chest. But it's overshadowed by pride in my daughter's strength, in the support of true family like Clara, in my own resilience. We've weathered the storm, Violet and I. We've faced betrayal, confronted lies, and come out stronger on the other side. Our new home isn't just a place to live, it's a testament to our journey, a symbol of the life we're building together. As I turn off the lights and head to bed, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead may not be easy, but we're ready for whatever comes our way. Because now we know the truth of who we are and what we're capable of. This isn't just a new chapter. It's a whole new story, written on our own terms. And I can't wait to see where it takes us.
Immediately following my high school graduation, I began working at a textile production plant. After 17 years, I was promoted to plant manager. At that point, the CEO gave me an absurd directive. Hold on a second. Do you mean that I've been fired? Well, yeah, that's right. Being abruptly fired was beyond me. Even though the CEO was the happiest person when I took over as plant manager and there were no accidents or incidents while I was in charge, I was unable to understand why. When I questioned, the CEO refused to provide an explanation. The CEO's secretary abruptly called me in one day, and I was about to hear an incredible tale. It was a sad and touching story that concealed the reason I was fired from the organization. You've been fired, right? Why are you still here, an outsider? Mike is my name. I've been employed at this textile manufacturer's business for 17 years since I graduated from high school. I have been awarded with the role of plant manager since last year. Everything has been going well at the plant since I took over as manager, and there haven't been any mishaps. Despite such conditions. Hold on a second. Does this imply that I'm going to lose my job? I spoke loudly as I addressed the CEO. Indeed, that is the case. I've already set up your next employment, so don't worry. The CEO told me. I truly want you to give it your all there. I left my hometown and started working for this corporation as soon as I graduated from high school. Naturally, I was nervous and didn't know anyone there, but the staff was really welcoming and I quickly adapted. Since I was a new employee, the CEO, who started the company, took care of me since he said that our histories were comparable. I worked frantically, giving my all at work, hoping to meet the CEO's high standards. I believed that we shared a unique link, but perhaps I was mistaken. What did I do wrong? I inquired. The CEO gave a headshake. I apologized deeply, but I would rather you didn't inquire as to why. You'll do well in your new position, though, given your skill set. They ought to treat you properly, because the president there is a really kind person. I have to go now since I have a meeting. With that, the CEO left the room. I wasn't convinced at all, but if it was an order from the CEO, I had no choice but to comply. No matter how much I argued, I had to follow. As I headed to the plant, I thought about what would come next. In the time leading up to my resignation, I was swamped with handing over my work and completing the resignation procedures. Since being told I was being let go by the CEO, I've racked my brain for a reason countless times, but couldn't come up with anything. I was troubled about moving to a new job with this unresolved feeling. Then one evening, with just a week left until my resignation, I was getting ready to leave when I received a phone call. It was from the CEO's secretary, Emily. Hello, is this Mike? It's Emily. I'm sorry to bother you when you're busy, but there's something urgent I really need to tell you. It's difficult to say this inside the office, so could you come to the coffee shop nearby? Emily had been the CEO's secretary since I joined the company. She's a beautiful and capable woman. We usually don't interact much, but she's always been kind to me during company events and such. Wondering why I was being called out by Emily, I headed to the coffee shop as instructed. Sorry to keep you waiting. No, I should be the one apologizing. I'm sorry for suddenly calling you out when you're busy. There's something I absolutely need to tell you. Emily usually has a bright expression, but on this day, she looked inexplicably sad. What's going on? It's about our CEO, Thomas. Actually, after saying that, Emily fell silent. There was silence for a moment, and at last, Emily went on. Mike, please stay calm as you hear this. This morning, Thomas passed away. What? I dropped the glass I was holding to the floor. The truth is, Thomas had been battling an illness for a long time. There were times when it seemed to get better, but last week his condition worsened. No way. That can't be true. Not many people know about Thomas's passing yet. The company currently stands on Thomas's reputation, so we can't immediately go public with this information. Likely, our company will have to close down with the CEO's passing. I was shocked and wondered why Emily chose this moment to tell me this fact. But why would you share such important news with me? There was something Thomas had told me. If anything were to happen to him, he wanted me to tell you first. He thought of you like his own son. Hearing this, I remembered the first time I met the CEO. I was an only child and lived with my father and mother. In high school, my father passed away due to an illness, and since my mother had always been frail, I couldn't let her work. So I decided to find a job instead of going to college as planned. However, it was a bad time, and all the companies had already closed their general applications, making it hard to find a job. My homeroom teacher desperately reached out to several companies on my behalf. That's when the CEO, having learned about my family situation, decided to take me under his wing. When I graduated from high school and got a job at this company, the CEO approached me. You're Mike, right? I heard about your father's passing from HR. It must have been tough. I also lost my father around your age and had to work to support my family. Our circumstances were so similar. I couldn't help but be concerned about you. You are excellent in school and will greatly benefit our company, so give it your all. I was comforted by the CEO's warm words and threw myself into my work more than anyone else after joining. The CEO always watched over me kindly. David, who was the plant manager at the time, also took great care of me. So you're Mike. I've heard about you from Thomas, but I can't give you special treatment. So work hard and follow along. I'll train you to be competent. David was a strict man, but I could feel his care in crucial moments. Whenever I struggled with my task, he would put his own work aside to teach me. I probably owe my appointment as plant manager to David. Emily, the secretary, helped me, an introverted and shy person, by introducing me to senior colleagues from other departments. Thanks to her, it became easier to coordinate with other departments, making my work more efficient. In this way, I was nurtured into a competent individual with the support of many staff members. I wouldn't have been elected the plant manager on my own. After my inauguration speech as plant manager, the CEO said to me, "Congratulations on becoming the plant manager. You were a new employee a decade ago, and now you're the plant manager. I don't have children, but I always wished for a capable son like you." I still vividly remember the CEO speaking happily. As I reminisced about the CEO, Emily offered me a handkerchief. Mike, don't cry. Before I knew it, I was crying. I haven't been able to repay Thomas for everything yet. There was so much I wanted to say, but I couldn't utter anything more. Let's express our feelings to him at the funeral the day after tomorrow, she said, and then we left the coffee shop. On the day of the funeral, I was helping Emily at the reception when a noisy group approached. It was the vice president and his entourage of employees. Then, spotting me, the vice president said, "Huh, is that Mike over there? You've been fired, haven't you? What's an outsider doing here?" He said this with a smirk on his face. At some point, the vice president and his clique of employees had become adversaries of the CEO, and rumors were circulating that the vice president might take over the company. The company was in trouble, and its reputation was suffering because of the vice president's aggressive sales tactics. As a result, the company had accumulated a significant amount of debt. Ignoring the vice president's words, I continued to help Emily. But then, the vice president and his group started talking loudly. The CEO was a terrible man, wasn't he? He had to pass away without saying anything and had been trying to ruin the company. He glanced at my face as he said this. In that respect, you're lucky you got fired before the company went bankrupt. Though, unemployed suits you better than part-time worker. I was holding back my frustration when the CEO's wife appeared, drawn by the commotion. Enough, you all. Do you even understand who's to blame for my husband having to file for bankruptcy? Emily, who was standing next to her, continued. John, this is all your fault. Do you have any idea how much Thomas cleaned up after you? The vice president looked surprised and overwhelmed. Have you forgotten about the suspension of business with that major menswear company? That was because of your forceful sales, which lost the company its credibility, right? The company has only been able to endure this long because of the CEO's support. Everyone knows you were trying to make the company your own. Then the vice president started speaking defiantly. Wait a minute. I have no attachment to this company. If it's going to collapse, it should just collapse quickly. We'll take our severance pay and quit right away. With that, the vice president and his group left. Indeed, as John said, I apologize for being here after quitting the company. I have no power to do anything. What are you saying? You've done nothing wrong. You're Mike, right? When my husband was alive, he always talked about you. He even joked when he was drunk. Mike is like my son. Once again, I thought of the CEO and couldn't help but cry. And so, the funeral was somehow conducted without incident. Months passed, and today was my first day at a company introduced to me by Thomas. After much deliberation, I decided to join this company. Upon arrival, I knocked on the door of the president's office to introduce myself. I am Mike, starting work here today. I came to introduce myself. The president slowly looked up, and to my surprise, someone I never expected was waiting there. What? Why are you here? It was Emily, the secretary. Mike, I've been waiting for you. Why is Emily here? I asked in a panic. Let me introduce myself again. I am Emily, the president of this company, she said with a smile. There was a good reason for your resignation, she began to explain. The CEO had quickly predicted that the textile industry was in danger due to the vice president's schemes and the recession. With his illness, he had decided to close the company. While working as a secretary, Emily had been attending business school, harboring the dream of starting her own business someday. The CEO supported her, and a few years ago, she was able to start her own company. Thanks to Thomas, who introduced many clients to me, I was able to get this company off the ground quickly. I was speechless at the sudden turn of events. Thomas had a dream of passing his company on to me, Mike, but that became impossible. He was most concerned about me, which is why he introduced me to Emily's company. I'm also happy to have you here, Emily said. Learning about this background, I felt the warmth of the CEO anew. There's something I'd like you to do right away. I want you to be my right-hand man and support this company with me. Unfortunately, this is also Thomas's wish, so you can't refuse, Emily said with a smile. But am I really up to the task? I asked. That's perfectly fine. I've called in a great helper. Then there was a knock at the door, and entering was, what? David? Why are you here? You took early retirement, right? I'm getting on in years and didn't want to start over at a new company. But Thomas and Emily insisted, so I decided to work here reluctantly. Well, I'll be here to train you hard. With David, who had trained me to be competent, I felt I could manage. David, Mike here is a senior, having even been a manager. Oh yeah, that's right. You became a manager after I retired. Then, let's make a good company together, the three of us. That will be the best way to repay Thomas. Understood. I look forward to working with you guys, I said. Overwhelmed by emotion, I burst into tears. Come on, don't cry. You're not a child. From now on, we'll work hard so we can shed tears of joy together. Encouraged by Emily's words, I nodded vigorously. Working hard here would undoubtedly be my way of repaying Thomas. Surely, he's watching over us from heaven. We exchanged a firm handshake and began to open a new chapter together. My name is Ethan Carter. Up until 3 days ago, I had been working at a small tech firm in downtown Chicago. I had been with the company for nearly 5 years, and for most of that time, I had been doing what was expected of me, showing up on time, doing my job well, and being the dependable employee that everyone relied on. I was the guy who handled the difficult projects, the one who stayed late to fix bugs that no one else wanted to tackle. I thought I was in good standing, but everything changed after one simple decision. It wasn't that I didn't want to stay at my job. I liked the work, and I got along with my colleagues. But there was one thing that had been bothering me for years: my salary. 3 years, to be exact. 3 years of being told next year for a raise, only to find myself still stuck at the same pay grade. The first year, I gave my boss the benefit of the doubt. The second year, I tried to remain optimistic. But by the third year, I was fed up. I had seen new employees hired at higher salaries, and my performance reviews were always excellent. Yet, my boss, Greg, had a way of dodging the conversation every time I brought it up. I knew it was time to explore my options. So, I did what many people do when they're feeling undervalued. I started looking for new opportunities. I didn't expect anything to happen overnight, but I wanted to see what else was out there. I had a few interviews with other companies, and to my surprise, I received multiple job offers. The pay was better, the benefits were more attractive, and, more importantly, I felt like I could actually grow in these new roles. But it wasn't about leaving Greg or the company. It was about realizing my worth and finding somewhere that would appreciate it. One afternoon, I sat down with Greg to talk about my future at the company. The conversation started out normal enough. We discussed projects, deadlines, and the general state of the business. But then I brought up the topic of my salary. Greg's face tightened immediately, and I could see the shift in his mood. He wasn't pleased. "I've been thinking about it," I said, "and I feel like it's time for a raise. I've been doing this job for 5 years now, and I've consistently delivered strong results." Greg paused, staring at me for a moment as if weighing his response. "Ethan," he said, his tone unusually cold, "I understand your concern, but I just don't think it's the right time. The company's budget is tight. I'm not in a position to make any promises right now." I nodded, trying to mask my frustration. But before I could say anything else, he dropped the bombshell. "I know you've been interviewing with other companies. I consider that disloyal. I think you've made your decision. You're fired, effective immediately." I blinked, stunned. "What? You heard me," Greg said, his voice firm. "You're no longer part of this company. Your building access is revoked, and you need to pack up your things and leave now." I sat there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. Fired. Just like that. The man who had promised me advancement 3 years ago was now sending me out the door without a second thought. But instead of getting angry or raising my voice, I just smiled. Maybe it was a defense mechanism. Maybe it was sheer disbelief, but I kept my cool. I stood up, shook his hand, and said, "Thanks for the opportunity, Greg. I wish you all the best." Then I walked out of his office, past the employees who had been unaware of the storm brewing behind closed doors. No drama, no shouting, just a quiet exit. But the story didn't end there. 3 days later, Greg received an email that would change everything. It was a Friday afternoon when the email hit Greg's inbox. He was sitting in his office, trying to bury himself in work to forget about the mess he had made. It wasn't supposed to end this way. He had been my mentor, the one who had given me my first shot at this job. The first few years had been great, but things had changed. I had changed. I had outgrown him, and he didn't like that. Still, there was a nagging feeling in the back of his mind. He had fired me, yes, but it hadn't felt like a victory. As much as he wanted to brush it off, he knew he couldn't. He could feel the weight of his decision settling on him. And that's when the email arrived. It wasn't from me. It wasn't even from a company I'd interviewed with. It was from a much bigger player in the tech industry, a company that had been following my work for months and had finally decided to make an offer. An offer Greg would have known about had he taken the time to check my activity on the company's internal system. He would have known that I had been performing better than anyone else in the department, that my project completions were always ahead of schedule, and that I had been actively participating in professional development seminars. But he hadn't bothered. The email was brief, but to the point. "Dear Mr. Wright, we are pleased to inform you that after reviewing your recent achievements and contributions to the tech industry, we would like to extend an offer to you for a senior position at our firm. We believe you would be a valuable asset to our team and would offer you an exciting new role with a salary that reflects your talents and experience. Please find the attached offer letter for your review. We look forward to welcoming you to our company. Best regards, Sarah Mitchell, Head of Recruitment, Innovative Tech Solutions." Greg's eyes widened. He stared at the email for a long time, his stomach churning. It felt like a slap in the face. I had managed to secure a job with a much more prestigious company, one that had recognized my potential before he ever did. He couldn't escape the feeling that he had made a mistake by firing me. This wasn't just about losing an employee. It was about losing someone who had the potential to do far more than what Greg had been willing to allow. But then, something inside Greg snapped. He wasn't going to let me just waltz into a new opportunity without consequences. He couldn't. That would be admitting defeat. I had been disloyal, hadn't I? How dare I try to leave the company that had given me everything? A simmering resentment began to grow within him, one that he couldn't shake. He wasn't going to let me win. The next few days passed in a blur for me. After I left the office that afternoon, I thought I would feel a sense of relief. I thought that once I was free from the chains of that job, I'd feel lighter, like I could breathe again. But it wasn't that simple. As the hours went by, I found myself obsessing over what had happened, replaying the confrontation in my mind, trying to understand how things had gone so wrong. It was hard not to feel bitter about it. After all, I had spent years dedicating myself to that company, and I had given everything I could. And in return, I was fired the moment I started exploring my own future. Still, I moved forward. I had a new job waiting for me, and I had been given the green light to start with innovative tech solutions. The pay was excellent, the work was challenging, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was being valued for the effort I put in. It should have been the start of a new chapter, but the lingering bitterness from Greg's sudden dismissal still gnawed at me. Then, just as I was settling into my new role and feeling like I could finally move on, I received an unexpected call from an old colleague. "Ethan, it's Rachel," she said. Rachel had been one of the few people I had trusted at the company, and she had worked closely with me in the marketing department. "You're not going to believe what Greg's been doing." I raised an eyebrow, already sensing where this was going. "What's happened?" "He's been spreading rumors about you, that you were stealing company secrets and that you had been planning to leave for months. He's telling people that he was forced to fire you because of your disloyalty." Her voice was thick with disbelief. It's just not true. You know that, right?" My stomach dropped. Of course, Greg would do something like that. I hadn't expected him to just let me go quietly. But this was an all-out attack on my reputation. "That's insane," I muttered. "I never did anything like that. I've always been transparent with him." "I know," Rachel said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But he's been telling people that you were the one who broke the trust, not him. He's even been hinting that you were planning to sabotage the company. It's a full-on smear campaign." I sat down at my desk, feeling the weight of her words. The last thing I wanted was a public spectacle, but it was clear now that Greg wasn't going to let me go without a fight. He was trying to ruin my reputation, to tarnish my career in an industry that was already competitive enough without unnecessary drama. The thought of fighting back, of trying to clear my name, felt overwhelming. But I knew I couldn't let this go. "I don't know what to do," I said quietly. "He's lying about me. People are going to believe him." "Not everyone will," Rachel said firmly. "I'll make sure that people know the truth. I'll talk to anyone who's still willing to listen. You don't deserve to have your name dragged through the mud like this." I appreciated Rachel's loyalty, but it didn't feel like enough. This wasn't just about clearing my name in front of a few colleagues. It was about making sure Greg knew he couldn't just play with my life like a puppet. He had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let it slide. The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings and discussions, both with my new employer and with my former colleagues. Rachel had kept her word, talking to anyone she could about the truth. Slowly but surely, I started hearing from old contacts who had either heard what Greg was saying or had witnessed his behavior firsthand. They all shared the same sentiment. Greg had overstepped, and they were on my side. But it wasn't just the people I knew who came to my aid. One afternoon, I received a call from an executive at Innovative Tech Solutions, Sarah Mitchell, the same woman who had offered me the job. She had heard about the situation with Greg and wanted to talk. "Ethan, I just wanted to let you know that we've been keeping an eye on the situation with your former company," Sarah said. "We've heard about the rumors Greg's been spreading, and I want you to know that we stand behind you. We believe in your work, and we're not going to let anything like this affect your future with us." It was a small comfort, but a comfort nonetheless. Sarah's support felt like the first real validation of my decision to leave. It wasn't just that I had gotten a new job, it was that I had made the right choice. I was in a place that appreciated me, that saw my worth. But as much as Sarah's words reassured me, I couldn't shake the feeling that this conflict wasn't over. Greg's petty vendetta had only just begun. He had made a mistake by firing me, and now I was going to make sure he paid for it. But how? I didn't have all the answers yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let him win. Not this time. The tension had been building steadily over the past few weeks, but I had no idea just how much further things would escalate until that one phone call came through. It was a Monday morning, just after I had settled into my new office at Innovative Tech Solutions. I had been focusing on my new responsibilities, trying to keep my head down and prove my worth, but Greg's actions still loomed over me like a shadow. I had just finished a meeting when my phone buzzed. The caller ID was unfamiliar, but something about it felt urgent. I answered, bracing myself for whatever might come next. "Ethan, it's Rachel." Her voice sounded panicked, almost breathless. "You need to hear this." I leaned back in my chair, already feeling the weight of the moment. "What's going on?" "It's Greg," she said, her words tumbling out. "He's gone too far. He's contacting clients you used to work with. He's telling them that you were the one who caused delays in projects, that you mishandled important accounts. He's trying to ruin your reputation with everyone you've ever worked with." I felt a chill wash over me. It was one thing for Greg to spread rumors among our colleagues, but now he was targeting my professional network, the very people who could make or break my career. Clients were everything in the tech industry, and if even one of them believed Greg's lies, it could destroy my credibility for good. "Has anyone taken him seriously?" I asked, my voice tight. Rachel sighed. "Not yet, but you know how it is. Some people are already asking questions. A few of the old clients you worked with have started reaching out, asking about what happened. They don't know who to believe." I felt a surge of panic. The situation was spinning out of control. I was already starting over in a new company, but the shadow of Greg's betrayal had started to cast a long, dark cloud over everything. I couldn't let him do this. I couldn't let him destroy my career. "Rachel," I said, my voice steely, "I need you to do something for me. I need you to talk to everyone who will listen. Tell them exactly what happened. Make sure they know that Greg's been lying, that I didn't do anything wrong. I don't care if you have to send emails, make calls. Just make sure people hear the truth." "I will," she promised. "But you need to prepare yourself, Ethan. Greg's not going to stop. He's going to keep pushing, and we both know he has the power to make things difficult for you." I rubbed my eyes, the weight of the situation sinking in. "I know, but I won't let him get away with this." After hanging up with Rachel, I sat there in silence for a few moments. My mind was racing. How could I stop Greg from continuing this smear campaign? He had a far-reaching network, and his influence was more powerful than I'd initially realized. But I wasn't going to roll over. Not now, not when everything I had worked for was on the line. A sudden idea hit me like a bolt of lightning. It wasn't enough to clear my name with just a few people. If I was going to take Greg down, I needed to expose his behavior to a much larger audience, an audience that would actually hold him accountable. I needed to gather evidence. The thought of going back into the company I had just left made my stomach churn, but it was the only way I could gather the proof I needed. Greg had been reckless, and it was time for me to play the game his way. If he thought he could destroy my career with lies, I was going to show him just how dangerous it could be to cross me. I reached out to my old contacts, the ones who still had ties to the company. Some were hesitant, understandably so. But eventually, one of them came through, Jake, the head of IT, a guy who had been a quiet ally during my time at the company. He agreed to meet me that evening, off the record. When we sat down, I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Jake, I need access to the company's internal records. I need to see emails, memos, anything that would show Greg's involvement in this mess. I know you're taking a risk helping me, but I need to expose him. This isn't just about my reputation. It's about the future of the company." Jake looked around nervously before nodding. "I don't like what Greg's been doing, Ethan. I'll help you, but you have to be careful. If you go public with this, it could end badly for everyone involved." "I'm aware of the risks," I said, my voice low but determined. "But I can't let him destroy everything I've worked for. Not like this." Over the next few days, Jake provided me with the documents I needed. There were emails, recordings, and even internal memos that showed Greg's attempts to smear my name. But there was one thing I hadn't expected. Hidden in the records was proof of Greg's own misconduct. He had been skimming money from client accounts, falsifying reports, and even covering up major mistakes that could have jeopardized the company's reputation. It was the smoking gun I needed. With the evidence in hand, I crafted a detailed report, one that not only cleared my name but exposed Greg for the unethical practices he had been hiding. I reached out to Sarah Mitchell, the head of recruitment at Innovative Tech Solutions, and shared the entire dossier with her. I wasn't just fighting for my career anymore. I was fighting for justice. The moment the report hit the inbox of the senior management at my new company, everything changed. Within hours, the story of Greg's misconduct spread throughout the industry. The company he had been working for scrambled to control the damage, and his reputation began to crumble. But for me, the relief was palpable. The truth was out, and I had taken back control. The fallout from Greg's actions was swift and unforgiving. Within days of the report leaking, news of his unethical practices became public knowledge. His once thriving career took a nosedive, and the company that had employed him was forced to launch an internal investigation, something that had been long overdue. For me, the aftermath was a strange mix of satisfaction and relief. The anger that had fueled me for so long was finally starting to dissipate, and in its place was a feeling I hadn't anticipated: peace. It wasn't that I was happy to see Greg fall from grace. In truth, I had hoped there would be a way for things to resolve without anyone losing their job. But I had fought for my truth, and in doing so, I had regained something far more valuable: my integrity. Sarah Mitchell from Innovative Tech Solutions had been right there beside me through it all. She supported me every step of the way, and her belief in me had only solidified my decision to join the company. "We knew you were a great fit for our team," she had said after the storm had calmed. "But now, we see your character, and that's priceless." By the time the dust settled, the company Greg had worked for was undergoing significant leadership changes. Greg himself was placed on indefinite leave as the investigation continued, and though no formal charges had been pressed, his future in the industry seemed uncertain at best. The truth had a way of catching up with people, no matter how hard they tried to hide it. Despite the damage to his career, I couldn't bring myself to feel triumphant. Yes, Greg had tried to destroy my life. Yes, he had crossed a line that would never be forgiven. But I had learned something invaluable through it all: the power of resilience. The experience had forced me to look inward, to realize just how much I was willing to fight for my future, and how much I had underestimated my own strength. When it came time for me to take my first official project with Innovative Tech Solutions, I felt ready. The weight of the past year had prepared me for the challenges ahead. The clients were happy with the work I had done in my first month, and the team, though still new to me, had already begun to see the value I brought. But the most important shift had been within myself. I wasn't just moving forward in my career, I was moving forward in life. The phone call from Rachel that day, months ago, had been a turning point. I had considered walking away, leaving everything behind, but instead, I had taken the path of confrontation, of not letting someone's betrayal define my future. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was the right one. And now, as I stood in the conference room presenting our new product launch, I realized that I had not only survived, I had thrived. Later, when the whole ordeal seemed like a distant memory, I took a moment to reflect. Greg's actions had put me through hell, but they had also pushed me to discover what I was truly capable of. I had fought for my reputation, for my integrity, and I had come out the other side stronger. In the process, I had learned something valuable about forgiveness, about how, sometimes, letting go of the anger and resentment can be just as powerful as seeking justice. In the end, the most important lesson I had learned wasn't about revenge or vindication. It was about the people who stood by me, the ones who offered support when it felt like the world was crashing down. Rachel, Sarah, Jake, they were the ones who helped me rebuild, who reminded me that loyalty and honesty still had value, even in a world that often seemed to reward the opposite. As the months went on, I began to settle into my new life, both professionally and personally. I started to feel like myself again, like I was no longer being defined by the things Greg had done to me. Instead, I was finally defining my own path. And as I looked ahead to the future, I knew one thing for certain: I was never going to let anyone take away my power again. The groom abruptly grabbed a dish of food and threw it to the ground, causing the carpet to splash with sauce. "I'm very sorry," fell straight out of my grasp. He was giggling uncontrollably as he looked down at me and declared to the world, "This friend of mine who is seated here is a cleaner. Let's let him handle the mess. He's accustomed to it." "Mr. Cleaner, can you handle this?" The bride blocked my path by standing in front of me when I refused. "You are the slime of society, according to my husband. You have no right to respond in such a manner to an elite. Then my wife suddenly showed there and gave the bride a quick smack on the shoulder. Oh, she exclaimed, grinning. I asked my dad to erase the groom's seat at work. Following these remarks, the bride and groom were struck with a startling realization that brought them to their knees. I'm Brian Smith, and I'm 26 years old. In my sophomore year of college, I lost both of my parents in an accident. I left college because I was so distraught and depressed about life until I got help from someone. I'm currently employed as a cleaner. I got married to Emily, a friend of mine who worked at a big bank after graduating from a prestigious university. She was a corporate sales representative at her branch when I was 25, and she was well known for her precise job that capitalized on her femininity and her agility that rivaled any man's. She was even being discussed as a potential female executive as her sales record continued to improve. During our dating days, she would declare, "I dream of working at the heart of the U.S. economy," with sparkling eyes. I've always questioned whether someone like me, who is unfit for her profession and education, could actually make her happy. However, Emily would dismiss such worries with a laugh. The day she emotionally accepted my proposal is still fresh in my mind. However, she was not without flaws. Well, let's see, Emily said, observing me while I ate from the other side of the table. After watching a recipe video, Emily made dinner with all her might after arriving home early from work for the first time. To be honest, she didn't make very good cream pasta. The broccoli was still tough, the pasta was overdone, and the sauce was tasteless. However, I was more pleased that she made such an effort than I was with the flavor. Yay, it's delicious. In an attempt to consume as much as possible without her noticing, I said. But Emily looked disappointed and supported her cheek in her hand. Brian, your nose expands when you lie. I automatically put my hand over my nose. Why? I adhered to the recipe precisely. As I watched her clutch her head in desperation, I couldn't help but giggle. That's awful, laughing at me. Emily gave me a look while puffing up her cheeks. Oh, I apologize. I simply thought you were adorable. Cooking seems to be your sole weakness, despite the fact that you do a great job and handle everything with ease. She crossed her arms and looked at me sternly, as if analyzing herself after I said that. You know my parents are divorced, right? My mom took me in but was too busy with work and did not cook much. We mostly had takeout or ate out, so I was never interested in cooking. So you see, it's all my dad's fault that I can't cook. I looked at my pouting wife and asked her something I had always wondered about. Hey, have you ever seen your dad? I met him once when I joined the bank. We talk on the phone a few times a year. It's better to see him when you can. You never know when you might suddenly never get the chance again. I was reminiscing about my deceased parents when Emily said, I'll think about it. She placed her hand on mine on the table. That day, I was at work, tasked with cleaning the exterior walls of a certain office building. It had been a while since I was paired with Ken, a 45-year-old senior coworker. Ken was a senior cleaner, holding a cleaning technician certification. He was the person the president trusted the most. Our job for the day involved rope access work, performed by dangling from the roof. We call it swing work since we sat on a swing-like setup to do the job. I'm not particularly afraid of heights, but the work was nerve-wracking since one mistake could lead to an accident. Brian, remember to check the equipment. The president has specifically asked me to make sure you don't get into any accidents. We can't have Emily becoming a young widow. Yes, sir. Taking Ken's words to heart, I carefully went about my tasks one by one. After 5 hours of work, we had safely completed all our tasks. I was putting away the pylons and rope we used to mark off the work area when suddenly someone called my name. Brian. Surprised, I turned around to find Tom Brown, who was in the same seminar as me in college. Oh, Tom, I exclaimed, surprised, and took off my helmet. Tom looked me up and down and sneered as he said, Really you? You dropped out of college to become a cleaner? That's pretty bad, man. Tom had always been like this. He always judged people based on their appearance, job, and income. He decided how to interact with someone based on whether there was any benefit for him. I wasn't surprised, but he was still as unlikable as ever. What are you doing for work now? I asked him in disgust as I binded the rope. Me? Oh, nothing much. Just a humble bank employee, he said, circling in front of me to straighten his suit collar and flaunt his company badge. I recognized that badge. That badge was the same as Emily's bank. Tom and Emily work at the same bank. I couldn't hide my dismay. Seeing my reaction, Tom smirked slyly. Yay, it's a tough job. I've got to go now. I wanted to leave quickly, fearing further interaction with him might negatively impact Emily's work. Then Tom said, Oh yeah, I'm getting married next month. A lot of old college friends will be there, so you should definitely come to the reception. Everyone will be thrilled. I spat in disgust internally, as if I'd attend your wedding reception. However, I decided to keep my cool, especially since he's Emily's coworker. Given I didn't know the nature of Tom and Emily's relationship, it seemed wise to keep things amicable for now. Congratulations. I'd love to attend and celebrate, I said. But Tom was grinning at me. He was expecting me to be ashamed of my background and feel out of place at an elite wedding, giving him a reason to mock me in front of others over drinks. Fine, if that's how you want it. I'll proudly attend. There's nothing about my life I'm ashamed of. I had lost all semblance of calm. With a broad smile, I declared, Absolutely. I'd be delighted to attend your wedding reception. Upon hearing my words, Tom appeared surprisingly shocked, his eyes sparkling as he looked at me. It was the gaze of a hyena that had spotted its prey. He smirked, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Perhaps he had concocted some sort of entertainment plan to make a fool of me in front of the elite group attending the reception. I'm thrilled. I'll send you an invite soon, Tom said before leaving the scene. I watched his back as he walked away, already filled with regret. Later, I received an invitation to Tom's wedding reception. No way, Brian. You know Tom Brown. In the evening, as I was preparing dinner in the kitchen, Emily came home and exclaimed upon seeing the invitation addressed to me on the table. Ah, it's the male. We were in the same seminar during college. He works at the same bank as you, Emily. And do you know him? Know him. He's my peer, and he transferred to our branch at the same time as me. We're working together in corporate sales now. So look, Emily said, pulling out her own invitation from her bag to show me. Are we both going to the same wedding reception? Learning that Tom and Emily were in the same branch and handled the same corporate sales, I regretted even more having accepted the invitation. The world is really small, huh? To think Tom is a friend of yours, Brian. From now on, no matter how much it irritates me, I'll try not to push him away and work on building a better relationship, Emily said with a reflective tone while eating dinner. What do you mean by that? I was curious and asked. Well, actually, Emily then shared with me her experiences between her and Tom. Tom, also in corporate sales, had a habit of looking down on others because of their family background or education, often belittling his colleagues and juniors. This attitude disrupted team cohesion, worsened the workplace atmosphere, and negatively impacted the work of those belittled. Emily, having top sales performance and graduating from a prestigious university, was not looked down upon. However, he told her blatantly, "You use women as weapons," and he envied her. Moreover, Tom was known to grant aggressive loans to clients to meet sales quotas, and he shouted, "Don't overstep your bounds as a woman," when Emily shyly cautioned him once. "I'm sorry to say this about your friend, but he's the worst. That's why I decided to stay away from him." "He's not my friend," I said, slamming down my fork, unable to hide my anger. I couldn't hide my anger at Emily's story. "Huh? But I thought you were close enough to be invited to his wedding." "It's fine. That guy has been rotten since our college days. It's better if we just keep our distance from now on. I'm sorry for making you feel uncomfortable." I said it as if spitting it out. "Why are you apologizing, Brian?" Emily laughed, looking at me curiously. I usually don't show negative emotions in front of Emily, so she seemed a bit surprised too. "Yeah, you're right." I hurriedly put on a smile to cover up, but I couldn't hide my agitation. I couldn't tolerate Tom's frivolous behavior, mocking women without knowing how Emily comes home exhausted, to the point of being a wrung-out rag, after working late every day. Emily isn't the kind of person to use her femininity as a weapon. Her sincerity, straightforwardness, and everything is something I know better than anyone. I met Emily 3 years ago while cleaning the floors of a certain building. That building, housing several large corporations, was a large one with contracts for regular cleaning in addition to daily maintenance. That day was for cleaning the floors of shared areas like lobbies and corridors. Since it was a weekday midday task, the lobby was divided in half with caution tape to ensure a walkable area, and the work was done using a specialized machine. The work was progressing smoothly, and the dirty floors were quickly regaining their shine. I love this moment of looking back. Just a little more. Let's push through. I muttered to myself to get pumped up. Then, a young male employee from some company, returning from outside, happened by. The moment he passed by me, he carelessly threw the trash bag he was carrying onto the floor where the detergent had been applied. "Throw that away too," the man said. I picked it up and looked inside. It was lunch leftovers from a convenience store and an empty carton, probably from a break in some park during his rounds. "Hey, wait." I called out to the man's back, but the young man walked away without turning back. I was furious, but I didn't want to cause trouble and risk losing the cleaning contract for the building, so I decided to bear it and go back to work. At that moment, a woman snatched the trash bag from my hand and ran after the man. "Please wait," she shouted, dashing after the young man. I watched in astonishment. "You should clean up your own trash. Even kindergartners know that," the woman said, thrusting the trash bag back at the man who was waiting for the elevator. Reluctantly, the man took it and got into the elevator. The woman then ran back to me, smiling. I was a track athlete when I was a student. I was instantly captivated by her carefree smile. It was love at first sight for me. Fumblingly, we exchanged contact information. It was the first time in my life something like this had happened. This was my encounter with Emily. Emily, full of a sense of justice, could see things straight. My wife is not someone to be trifled with by scum like Tom. I was only worried about protecting Emily from any more discomfort caused by Ethan. Should I cancel our attendance at Tom's event even now? But canceling at this point might inconvenience the other party. Tom probably doesn't know we're married, so acting like strangers at the reception might be best. "We married while you were at the previous branch, so your coworkers wouldn't know me either." That's what I told Emily. I didn't want to burden her with any more worries, especially since she's already going through a tough time. "Why? Why would you want to hide something like that?" Emily looked puzzled. "It's understandable since she doesn't know the situation. It's just to avoid any trouble." "That's okay, right?" Seeing my serious face, Emily reluctantly agreed. On the day of the wedding, Tom's reception was held at a top hotel in New York, attended by 500 guests, a large-scale event. Tom's bride was a 23-year-old woman named Marissa, apparently the daughter of a wealthy family that owns a chain of restaurants. There were VIPs present, likely business associates of the bride's father, along with influential figures from the city. I was seated at a table for friends of the groom. Emily, sitting at a table for bank associates a bit away, was keeping our promise to act like strangers. As soon as I took my seat at a table for 8, I received cold stares from Tom's entourage. Then they smirked at me while conspicuously updating each other about their recent activities. The names of major corporations, big securities companies, construction firms, and trading companies were mentioned in the conversation. Among them, a man named Clint, sitting next to me, struck up a conversation. "It's been a while, Brian. It's been 6 years since you left college, right? What are you doing now?" Clint was the only decent guy to talk to here. Rumor has it he started his own business while in college and now owns an IT company. "Hi, Clint. It's been a while. I'm now working in cleaning." "Hey, Clint, give it a rest, man." Before I could finish, one of the guys cut me off. "Don't you feel sorry for him? A dropout living as a cleaner, trying to blend in with the elites. Just leave him be." Then the others smirked and laughed while looking at me. "Can't believe he had the nerve to show up. The disgrace of our college," they said, loud enough for me to hear. Clint looked at me, puzzled, so I gestured back that I was okay. Even after the bride and groom entered and the reception started, the verbal attacks on me didn't stop. I was prepared for this, being Tom's friend, but I couldn't understand why they demeaned my job. Clint, whispering, "Don't mind them," and smiling was the only consolation. This happened when the bride and groom came to our table during the candle service. "Brian, thank you for coming today. I'm glad you're here," Tom said, smirking down at me. "Congratulations," I said and nodded to the bride as well. The bride, Marissa, seemed young and pretty at first glance, but it felt like her beauty was masked with makeup. What bothered me more was her seemingly unintelligent way of speaking. "Damn, my arm is tired." "Tom, do it by yourself." Marissa puffed her cheeks like a child. Saying that with too much blush, she looked like she had measles. "Marissa, honey, just a little longer, okay? Let's do our best." Tom soothed her with a purring voice while the others at the table exchanged looks and chuckled. I was holding back laughter too. Then Tom suddenly accused me. "Brian, you just laughed, didn't you?" he asked, his face pale and devilish. No, not really. I wondered if my inner laughter had somehow leaked out without my notice. Then Tom abruptly grabbed a plate of half-eaten food from in front of me and dumped it on the floor. Yikes. No. Marissa shrieked in a voice resembling a scream. The sauce splashed all over the expensive carpet on the floor. My bad slipped out of my hand. Tom laughed mockingly while looking down at me. People from nearby tables turned their attention to us, wondering what was happening. A female staff member rushed over to clean up, but Tom stopped her, saying, "No worries. My friend sitting here is a cleaner, accustomed to dealing with dirty things. Let him handle it. Please, Mr. Cleaner." "But we can't ask your guests to do that." The female staff hesitated. Marissa intervened. "Just do as Tom says." She dismissed the staff member. I was beyond angry, simply dumbfounded. Marissa looked at me with a mocking laugh, just like Tom. "You two are a match made in heaven. Perfect for each other," I muttered to myself with a laugh. "What?" Tom's face turned sour as he confronted me. Ignoring him, I stood up and advised the staff member. "For first aid, please dampen a cloth with lukewarm water, soak it with a neutral detergent, and tap it to transfer the stain onto the cloth. It's best to get it cleaned by a professional as soon as possible." Then I turned to Tom, glaring, and said, "I'm a professional in cleaning. If you want me to clean for you, come to my company and make a formal request." I threw a napkin onto the chair and was about to leave. Then Marissa blocked my way. "My husband called you social trash. Don't think you can defy an elite being trash yourself." I gazed at her, marveling at how different she was from Emily. Completely different creature. Then I noticed Emily standing behind the bride. "Emily?" Surprised, I watched as Emily gently tapped the bride's shoulder and announced with a bright smile, "I'll ask my dad to erase the groom's seat at work." Marissa shook off her hand, bewildered. What are you talking about? That's impossible. And who are you?" "Emily, what's wrong with you? Are you drunk? Save your sleep talk for bed. Keep out if it's none of your business." Tom tried to push Emily aside. I instinctively blocked his hand, stepping forward to protect Emily. Emily's maiden name was Wilson, and she used it professionally. Her real father, the bank branch manager, suddenly appeared with a laugh, tension instantly filling the air. "The sense of justice you have is truly your father's, Miss Emily," the branch manager said. "I apologize for showing you such an unsightly scene." The manager, looking at Emily with a sense of regret, added, "I know you're busy, but try to call your dad sometimes. He seemed lonely when I saw him at the headquarters recently." Yes, I will," Emily said, looking embarrassed. The branch manager turned to me. "To have you here today, Brian. It's been a while. How is the president, Carol, doing?" Tom stared at me, dumbfounded. "Sorry for the late greeting, branch manager. My aunt is as energetic as ever, working hard every day," I replied. The manager nodded with a smile. "I heard she's launching a new welfare-related business. She's thrilled to have you as her successor. It gives her work more purpose." Tom and Marissa looked at us bewilderedly. The branch manager continued, "Emily's father? This person isn't just a cleaner," the branch manager said with an exasperated look. "What? You didn't know? Her father is Mr. Wilson, the head of the HR department. This man, Brian Smith, is the nephew of the president of Smith Corporation, which owns many subsidiaries related to cleaning services, and he's the next president. He's also Emily's husband." "What? The head of HR, the next president, and her husband?" Tom turned pale and staggered backward in panic. Marissa looked equally fled, but he was wearing a work uniform, cleaning the building. Tom pointed at me. The branch manager looked at me admiringly and said, "The president's policy is that executives involved in management must undergo several years of field training. Understanding the field's hardships is considered crucial for managing the company. It's truly a remarkable company." Then, turning to Tom, he continued, "Smith Corporation is a significant client for our branch. If this incident leads to a cessation of business, you will undoubtedly be put out. And if you've also made a bad impression on the head of HR, there's no saving you. Well, try your best with your lovely bride wherever you go." With a laugh, stating he had another appointment, the branch manager excused himself. Branch manager, "Wait." Tom and Marissa timidly turned back to us. "Well, Brian and Emily, I mean." Tom forced an awkward smile, looking back and forth between us. "Sorry, Tom, but we'll be taking our leave now. As the next president, I need to discuss changing our main bank with our president, I said. And Emily added, I also have to hurry and call my dad. Tom clung to us desperately. Come on, Emily. Please. Brian, aren't you my friend? We are friends. No way. Don't make me laugh. I brushed off Tom's hand and said, You're done for. Tom collapsed to his knees, crestfallen. Emily and I left together, walking away from the scene. As we opened the doors to leave the venue, we heard Marissa's screams behind us. What? You're getting fired from the bank? This is no joke. Call off the wedding right now. I refuse to marry a man like this. Daddy, do something. The venue started buzzing with noise. What? What are you talking about? I wouldn't want a foolish woman like you even if you begged. Excuse me. Emily and I heard this, looked at each other, and shared a laugh. We took a taxi from the hotel, got off at a convenience store near our house, and bought sandwiches and beer instead of the missed full-course French meal. We walked leisurely home, bathed in the sunset, feeling as if we were on a date for the first time in a while. Are you okay with how things turned out? Everyone at your bank found out about your father. I asked Emily midway across a bridge over a small river. I grew up seeing my mother struggle after their divorce, never forgiving my father for being a workaholic and neglecting his family. That's why I've been working myself to death, choosing a general career position even when they said it was impossible for a woman, thinking I wouldn't lose to men, to my father, she said with distant eyes. Then she continued, but working at the same bank as my father, I finally understood my father's struggles. He must have had a hard time too. So, I hope to build a good relationship with my father from now on. Emily leaned on the railing, looking at the river shimmering in the sunset. Then she turned to me. I can think this way because of you, for always being there to support me gently. Thank you, Brian. Emily's smile, tinged with the color of the setting sun, made me blush a bit. Then, let's have dinner with your dad sometime, I suggested. Emily nodded happily at my suggestion. Some days later, according to what Emily told me, Tom's wedding reception turned out to be a complete disaster. It wasn't just the bride and groom. A massive fight broke out involving their parents and relatives, who had been against the marriage from the start. Naturally, the reception was called off, and the couple split up soon after, leading to the collapse of their relationship. As for Tom, he was later transferred to an affiliate of the bank. It said he's completely off the track for promotion now. Ever since that incident, Tom seems to have become a much quieter person. But can people really change that quickly? I bet it won't be long before his true colors show again. A few years later, Emily was transferred back to the headquarters, where she thrived in the HR department's career group, organizing external training and programs to support the advancement of female employees. She was also pouring her efforts into creating a workplace environment where women could balance work and child rearing, becoming a focal point for the media as a female executive. As for me, after completing my field training, I was under the president's wing, receiving formal education as his successor. You're really starting to look the part in a suit. I wish my brother and sister-in-law could see you now, the president would say. Wearing an unfamiliar suit, I spent my days accompanying the president on visits to clients. Occasionally, he would say something like that and become teary-eyed. One evening, on my way home, I found myself watching the sunset from the usual bridge. Lately, I've been feeling especially grateful for having a fulfilling job. I wish I could tell my younger self, who had dropped out of college and was despairing over life after the sudden loss of my parents. Your future is very happy. Brian, I heard someone call my name, and I turned around to see Emily walking towards me with a smile, waving her hand. Welcome back. You're home early today, aren't you? Emily approached me with a slight blush and said, Today, I left work early and went to the doctor. What? Are you feeling all right? I asked in surprise. Emily didn't answer directly, but with a big smile, took an ultrasound picture out of her bag. She then covered half of her face with it and looked at me with teary eyes. I'm 3 months pregnant. Overwhelmed with joy, I instinctively hugged Emily. We're going to be parents, Emily said with tears in her voice. Oh, how I wish I could tell my past self. I am incredibly happy right now.
My name is Daniel Hartman. 18 years ago, I was one of the first 5 employees of a small, scrappy software startup called Nexera. We didn't have fancy offices or venture capital back then, just an idea, a handful of laptops, and an endless supply of coffee. I was 24, fresh out of college, and willing to sleep under my desk if it meant getting our product out the door. Over the years, I wore every hat imaginable: developer, project manager, customer support, even janitor on more than one occasion. I watched Nexera grow from a cramped basement to a gleaming glass tower in the heart of downtown. We launched products that changed the industry. We signed deals I used to only dream about. I gave Nexera everything: my time, my energy, and if I'm honest, pieces of myself I can never get back. That's why it hit so hard when they hired Charles Whitmore as the new CEO. He was young, sharp-dressed, and spoke in buzzwords that made the board nod like bobbleheads. Innovation through disruption, agility, synergistic frameworks. I could see the writing on the wall the first time he walked into the building: all designer suits and $1,000 watches. To him, we weren't people. We were numbers on a spreadsheet, assets to rearrange or eliminate. Still, I held out hope. Maybe he'd recognize my experience. Maybe he'd appreciate the foundation we built. Maybe he'd understand that sometimes wisdom beats fresh ideas. That hope lasted exactly 30 minutes. During our first meeting, he leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, and said with a rehearsed smile, "We're bringing in younger talent with fresh perspectives. It's nothing personal, Daniel. It's just the direction we need to move in." He said it like he was doing me a favor. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't even ask for an explanation. I just nodded, stood up, and calmly walked back to my office. I packed my belongings: a few family photos, my first employee badge, the little origami crane our CTO's daughter made for me during a Take Your Kid to Work day. It all fit into one box. 18 years, reduced to cardboard. As I carried the box past my coworkers, some teary-eyed, some too scared to even look, I smiled, not out of happiness, but because deep down, I knew something Charles didn't. Nexera was a delicate machine, one built carefully, layer by layer, with systems and dependencies only a few of us truly understood. You can't rip out a piece of the foundation and expect the building to stay standing. I didn't say a word. I didn't leave a nasty email. I simply walked out of the building, down the steps, and into the afternoon sun, feeling lighter than I had in years. 3 weeks later, when I got the frantic call about Nexera's main server crashing, I was sipping coffee at a little diner by the beach. And for the first time in 18 years, I let it ring. The first call came from Marcus, the new systems lead. I had trained myself during my final year at Nexera. Smart guy, but green. When I didn't pick up, he tried again and again. By the 5th missed call, I figured something big must have happened. Out of curiosity, I finally checked my voicemail. Marcus's voice was frantic. "Daniel, it's bad. Really bad. The main server's down. We can't access client data. The backups, they're not syncing. Please, if you get this, call me. We don't know what to do." I set the phone down and took another sip of coffee, staring out at the waves. A strange feeling stirred inside me. Not satisfaction exactly, but something close. For years, I had been an invisible net catching every near disaster before it hit the ground. I patched vulnerabilities, maintained backup protocols, updated critical systems, often without anyone even noticing. It wasn't glamorous work, but it kept Nexera alive. And now, without me there, the cracks were starting to show. 2 days later, I saw the headlines. Major outage at Nexera disrupts services for thousands of clients. Formerly reliable software giant faces backlash after system crash. Charles held a press conference. Of course, slick as ever. He blamed unexpected technical challenges and promised full transparency. But I knew better. The server that crashed, it ran on a custom architecture I had designed personally. I had written the emergency recovery protocols. I had managed the encrypted client backups. Without the person who understood the system's spine, Nexera was a giant stumbling in the dark. Part of me wanted to help. These were people I cared about, my old team, my friends. People like Jenna from customer success, who baked cookies for every product launch, and Luis from tech support, who once stayed up 3 nights straight with me during a critical update. But then I remembered that meeting with Charles. The smug smile, the buzzwords, The way he had swept 18 years of work aside, like it was nothing. They had made their choice. Now they had to live with it. Still, the thought gnawed at me. Was I being petty? Was I letting innocent people suffer just to teach a lesson to an arrogant CEO? It wasn't just about Charles. Real people, clients, customers, employees, were caught in the fallout. And then came the email. It wasn't from Marcus, or Jenna, or Luis. It was from Charles himself. A short, desperate message with no formal greeting, no polished language. Just 6 blunt words. "We need you. Please come back." I stared at the screen for a long time, feeling the weight of those words settle over me. After everything, he had the nerve to ask for help, and I had a decision to make. I didn't reply right away. I let the email sit there, taunting me from my inbox, while I finished my coffee and took a long walk along the beach. The late afternoon sun burned low, and every step felt heavier, weighed down by 18 years of loyalty and betrayal. By the time I made it back to my car, another email was waiting. This one was longer, more desperate. Charles practically begged me to return for a consulting engagement. He promised compensation, full autonomy, even an apology buried between lines of legal jargon. But money wasn't the issue. It was about respect, about dignity, about every long night, every lost weekend, every missed birthday party, because I was fixing problems no one else could even see. Charles hadn't just fired me. He'd erased me. And now, the company I had poured my soul into was crumbling under the weight of its own arrogance. Still, I wasn't cruel by nature. I didn't like watching people suffer, especially my old team. I knew they were scrambling, trying to salvage systems they barely understood. So, after sleeping on it, I did what any responsible adult would do. I negotiated. When Charles called the next morning, voice tight with panic, professionalism slipping, I laid out my terms calmly. "I'll come in as a third-party consultant," I said. "No reinstatement. No public announcement. You wire my consulting fee up front, triple my old salary, and I report directly to the board, not you." There was a long, bitter silence. "Triple," he sputtered. "You want the bleeding to stop or not?" I said, "Your call." Charles, clearly swallowing his pride like a mouthful of broken glass, agreed. 2 hours later, I walked back into Nexera's headquarters. The building looked the same, but the energy had changed. Gone was the swagger, the sense of invincibility. People moved around like ghosts, whispering in corners, darting nervous glances at me. Some old co-workers approached with tentative smiles. Others looked away, embarrassed. No one knew how to act around a guy who had built the foundation. They were now desperately trying to patch without instructions. Marcus greeted me first, practically wringing his hands. "Dan, man, thank you for coming," he said, eyes wide with genuine relief. It's a mess." "Let's get to work," I said simply. We went straight to the server room. My old kingdom. It was worse than I expected. Red warning lights blinked on critical hardware. Data corruption alerts flooded the monitors. Backup protocols were half implemented. Patch jobs layered over old systems like duct tape on a sinking ship. And nobody, not Marcus, not the engineers, not even the new tech leads, knew the real architecture. "Where's a redundancy server?" I asked. Marcus looked confused. "We thought that was just legacy code. We shut it down last week to save costs." I closed my eyes for a long, slow moment. The redundancy server had been the backbone of our disaster recovery plan. Shutting it down was like pulling the parachute from a skydiver's pack mid-fall. They hadn't just let the system fail. They had helped it along. Still, no sense in pointing fingers now. Time was running out. Every hour the system stayed down. Nexera hemorrhaged clients, reputation, and millions in penalties. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. For 3 straight days and nights, I lived in that server room. No sleep, no distractions. Just me, the tangled legacy of my own making, and the quiet, relentless ticking of time slipping away. And in those long, lonely hours, the truth became clear. Nexera wasn't just broken because they fired me. It was broken because somewhere along the way, the company had lost its soul, the hunger, the grit, The quiet pride in doing things right, even when no one was watching. Charles and the board had chased shiny new trends, buzzwords, and image, and forgotten the invisible hands that had built it all. By the morning of the fourth day, I had stabilized the servers, restored most of the corrupted data, rebuilt the backbone. Nexer would survive, for now. But as I sat there, staring at the humming machines, I realized something. I was never coming back here permanently. I had outgrown this place long ago. They just hadn't realized it until it was too late. The official meeting was scheduled for noon, a full board review of recovery efforts led by yours truly. Charles insisted on hosting it in the executive conference room, a sleek glass box perched high above the city skyline. I guess he thought it would impress me, or maybe intimidate me. Neither worked. When I walked in, all eyes turned to me, some curious, some defensive, some outright hostile. Charles stood at the head of the table, his smile tight, his posture rigid. "Daniel," he said, in that smooth politician's voice he used for public events. "First, let me personally thank you for your extraordinary work under difficult circumstances." I said nothing, just set my laptop down and connected it to the screen. The board members shifted in their leather chairs, glancing nervously at one another. They wanted answers, reassurance, proof that Nexra wasn't about to collapse under their watch. "Let's get one thing straight," I said, turning to face them. The outage wasn't some random, unpredictable disaster. It was negligence, plain and simple. A ripple of discomfort spread around the room. I clicked the first slide, a diagram of the server architecture annotated with bright red excess where critical safety protocols had been disabled or ignored. This system, I continued, was carefully designed with redundancies for a reason. Over the last few months, critical fail-safes were removed or left unmonitored, all in the name of cost-cutting and streamlining. I let the silence hang there. "You didn't just gamble with your infrastructure," I said, my voice sharper now. "You gamble with the trust of every client who ever believed in Nexera." Charles cleared his throat. "Daniel, while we appreciate your insights, the decision to update certain legacy systems was made collectively based on strategic." I cut him off. "You didn't update. You amputated." Several board members leaned forward, sensing the shift. I pulled up another slide, a simple chart showing Nexera's client retention rates before and after crash. "In 3 weeks, you lost more accounts than we lost in the previous 5 years combined," I said. "And if you think you can fix that with PR spin and free trial extensions, you're already dead." Charles's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt again. I could feel the room leaning toward me now. The truth had a gravity all its own. "And here's the kicker," I said, moving to the final slide, a list of recommended actions. "You can patch the servers. You can stabilize the infrastructure. But unless you rebuild the culture you destroyed, unless you start valuing the people who actually know how this company works, it's only a matter of time before this happens again. And next time, you won't be lucky enough to find someone willing to clean up the mess." Silence. Heavy. Awkward. The kind that wraps around your chest and squeezes. Finally, one of the board members, an older woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, spoke. "Charles," she said quietly, "you made these changes without consulting technical leadership?" Charles squirmed in his seat. "I was assured by the new hires that." "You were assured," she repeated, cutting him off. She turned to me. "Mr. Hartman, if you were in charge of ensuring this doesn't happen again, what would you recommend?" The question hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just about technology. It was about philosophy, about who Nexera wanted to be. I took a breath. "Start listening to the people who built this place." I said, simply, "Stop chasing trends and start respecting expertise." Innovation isn't about being shiny and new. It's about being smart and resilient. Another beat of silence. Then, quietly, the chairwoman nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Hartman. You're dismissed." Charles tried to regain control of the meeting. As I packed up my laptop, his voice sounded small, desperate. As I walked toward the door, I heard the chairwoman's voice cut through the room again. "Someone call an emergency executive session." I smiled to myself as the door closed behind me. I didn't need to stay to know what was coming. Charles was finished. And for the first time in nearly 2 decades, I was free, really free, to decide what came next. I didn't rush back to anything. After I left that conference room, I took a long walk through the city, streets I had once rushed down daily, blind to everything but deadlines and deliverables. Now I saw them differently. The little coffee carts on the corners, the buskers playing their hearts out, the smell of street food curling through the air. It all felt sharper, more alive. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was relieved. 3 days later, an announcement hit the tech blogs. Nexera CEO Charles Whitmore steps down amid outage fallout. There was no mention of me, of course. No credit given publicly. That wasn't the point. I didn't need applause. I had my dignity and my future back. The board offered me a permanent executive role after Charles was ousted. They dangled a massive salary, stock options, public recognition. I declined. I wasn't interested in rebuilding someone else's crumbling castle. It was time to build something of my own. A few former colleagues, the ones who hadn't forgotten what real leadership looked like, reached out. Some were tired, disillusioned. Others were simply ready for something better. Over coffee, lunches, late-night strategy calls, a new idea took shape. What if we started something new? A company built not on image, but on integrity. A place where the people building the future actually mattered. And just like that, Lucent Technologies was born, a small, scrappy startup with a simple mission: to do things right. No gimmicks, no shortcuts, just brilliant people doing brilliant work, with respect for the craft and each other. The early days were hard, long hours, uncertain funding, wearing 10 different hats at once. But for the first time in years, I woke up excited, energized, alive. The first major contract we landed was with one of Nexera's former top clients. A quiet, symbolic victory no one needed to spell out. Others followed. Word got around quickly in the tech world. Lucent delivers. Lucent cares. Lucent knows what they're doing. By our second year, we were profitable. By our third, we were growing faster than I ever thought possible. Sometimes, I'd hear rumors about Nexera, their slow decline, the revolving door of leadership, the way they struggled to recover the trust they had once taken for granted. It didn't make me happy to hear it. It just confirmed what I had learned the hard way. A company isn't built on buzzwords. It's built on people. Respect them and you'll thrive. Dismiss them and you'll fall. Simple as that. One evening, well after dark, I stood by the window of our new office, overlooking a different part of the city now, humbler but full of life. The team was still buzzing inside, coding, laughing, building the future. I thought back to that day Charles fired me. I remembered how he said he needed younger talent with fresh perspectives. Funny thing was, I hadn't needed to fight him. I hadn't needed to argue, beg, or prove my worth. I just needed to leave, to trust myself enough to walk away from a place that no longer deserved me, and towards something infinitely better. In the end, getting fired wasn't the end of my story. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And as I watched the lights of the city twinkle in the distance, I smiled. Because sometimes, when the world forces you to let go of something you thought you couldn't live without, it's only clearing space for the life you were meant to build all along.
A lousy high school graduate has no place here. Samantha, a former classmate and the daughter of a firm president, told me to leave a networking event that I was attending on behalf of a customer. At last, my strained patience gave out. I was going to leave in front of a crowd, tired of Samantha's taunts, so I just said, "Understood." I was ready to leave the gathering when a pale-faced person stepped in front of me. Samantha thus lost her family and her work, leaving her penniless. I'm Kevin Carter, and I'm 35 years old. I am an executive at Carter Foods. Our organization is dedicated to product creation and deals with a range of meals, from processed goods to bottled water. I was unable to attend college because of family matters, so after high school, I began working at Carter Foods. Even after 20 years of employment, I still adore my job. In my personal life, I married Emily 2 years ago after meeting her through a friend. We hope to have children in the future, but not yet. I was living a happy life at home and at work until I happened to run into a high school classmate one day, which resulted in an incredible chain of events. I have loved doing research since I was a young child and had aspirations of becoming a researcher. As a result, I studied hard starting in elementary school and consistently had excellent grades. But my father and I were left behind when my mother fled with her affair partner when I was in high school. My father was unable to work and was in and out of hospitals due to his alcoholism brought on by the shock of her leaving. College was obviously out of the question for me. We were able to make ends meet thanks to the living expenses provided by my uncle, my dad's brother, but I gave up on college because I couldn't ask him to pay for my tuition. I chose to work immediately after high school graduation and join the current company because, despite my uncle's assurances that I shouldn't worry, I couldn't bring myself to rely on him. It was uncommon for someone to not attend college back then, so the fact that I, the best student in my class, wasn't going became very popular. At that point, Samantha, a well-known student in the class, told me, "You're not going to college because you're poor." "You mean a high school graduate? Your life is essentially over, really. The future is bleak for you." Samantha treated me like an enemy and made fun of me whenever she saw me, most likely because she was wealthy and her father was the president of the company. She laughed at me for being impoverished. She undoubtedly didn't enjoy that I kept ignoring her because I felt there was no use in talking to her. So, until I graduated, I was made fun of for being impoverished. Being unable to attend college at the time was difficult, and her remarks constantly made me feel horrible. Even though I just had a high school degree, I now believe it was beneficial to land such a great position. One afternoon, I went with a junior colleague to the Matthews Group for a business negotiation about a new product. While waiting for the representative in the lobby after checking in at the reception, someone called out from behind me, "Isn't that Kevin? No way, you haven't changed at all." When I turned around, there stood a woman. As I wondered who it was, her face gradually jogged my memory. It was Samantha, my former high school classmate. As soon as she saw me, she started with the pleasantries, as if reminiscing, but then quickly began mocking me, just like the old days. "What's a lowly high school grad doing here? You couldn't have landed a job at any significant company, could you?" While I was amazed that she hadn't changed at all, even as an adult, I asked Samantha if she worked for the Matthews Group. "Well, of course. My dad's the president of the Matthews Group. That makes me the daughter of the president of a top company," Samantha boasted, high and mighty. "I'm going to be the next president of this company." When I responded with disinterest, she seemed a bit miffed. "There's no way our company would deal with someone who hires people like you. I'm not being mean, but you'd be better off going home. It's a waste of time." Samantha left the company and went somewhere else. She had called me unpleasant, but I thought she was quite the nasty piece herself. When the representative arrived, I decided to proceed with the negotiation. After successfully concluding the negotiation, I sent my subordinate home and returned to the company for the remaining work. While working quietly at the office, my smartphone notification went off. Checking my phone, I saw that I had received a direct message on social media. Thinking it was unusual, I checked it, and it was from Samantha. She probably tracked down my account through mutual contacts or friends. Wondering what she wanted, I saw the message was mocking me. I was amazed that she would go as far as to harass me through social media. Thinking it was pointless to engage, I decided to thoroughly ignore Samantha's messages. Then, realizing she was being ignored, she started sending messages and calls through the messaging app, maybe getting my contact from a classmate who knew me. I was annoyed at myself for having the auto notification feature on. The notification sound was irritating, and she kept sending messages despite me not responding at all. It didn't stop even when I got home, and my phone kept ringing even during dinner with Emily. Emily must have thought it was odd and asked if something happened, so I told her about today's events and that it had been going on like this for a while. She sounds like a piece of work. You can't go silent mode because of work, right? Why don't you just turn off notifications for her? If you engage, it might just get worse. Following Emily's advice, I turned off notifications for Samantha's contact. After that, I wasn't troubled by notification sounds anymore. "By the way, you're going to the networking event too, right?" Emily asked. "Kevin, yo, the chairman can't make it, so I'm planning to go alone." "You're going, right?" "Of course. I even got a new dress for it. Take a look." Emily showed me the dress with excitement. It was a simple design that suited her well, and I was looking forward to seeing her in it at the event. Messages from Samantha have been coming, now stopped since then, but turning off notifications means I'm not bothered by them anymore. However, I didn't read them, thinking it would just get worse if she knew I've seen them. They're probably full of mockery. Anyway, I'm tormented by regret for having met Samantha at that time in that place. Time has passed, and the day of the networking event has arrived. I was more nervous than usual at this gathering of various companies. My company was invited too, and the chairman was supposed to attend. But due to war commitments, I ended up going alone. As I entered the venue and looked around, I recognized someone familiar. They seemed to notice me too and waved over enthusiastically. Just as I was about to head their way, a woman stood in my path. What? Why? It was Samantha who appeared before me. Then I remembered something. Today's event was hosted by the president of the Matthews Group. Of course, as the president's daughter, Samantha would be there. My mood instantly dropped. After all this time ignoring me, who do you think you are, and why are you even here? How did you sneak in? Samantha glared at me, visibly irritated. She must be pretty upset that I've been ignoring her messages. When I explained that I was invited and attending, Samantha burst out laughing. As if my dad would ever invite a high school grad loser like you. You probably heard about the event and snuck in to save on dinner, right? That's just like something a poor person would do. Samantha continued to hurl harsh words at me. Even I have my limits. Furious over Samantha's messages and past behavior, I clenched my fists so tightly, trembling with anger. There's no place for a poor high school grad here. I had reached my breaking point. In front of everyone, as Samantha directed her insults at me, I simply said, "Understood," and was about to leave when I heard, "President Kevin Isu." President Matthews, the president of the Matthews Group, was looking pale as he stared at us. He must have witnessed the entire exchange between Samantha and me. He looked like he was about to collapse. "What are you saying, Dad? This guy is a president? He's just a poor man." President Matthews interrupted Samantha with a shout. "Samantha, who do you think you're talking to? Kevin here is the president of Carter Foods, which supplies most of our products. Do you have any idea what would happen to us without Carter Foods products?" Samantha tried to make excuses, saying, "But the truth is, the Matthews Group runs a nationwide restaurant chain, and our company supplies the food products they sell. Aren't you supposed to be part of the executive team? How can you not know this? But I just never thought a high school grad from the bottom could be a president. He was so poor in high school. Indeed, I was admittedly very poor during high school. However, after graduating and joining my uncle's company, Carter Foods, I was able to lead a decent life. My uncle, a bachelor without children, said, 'I always thought I'd be a lifelong bachelor, so I want you to take over the company in the future. Please do your best.' He told me this when I joined the company. 3 years after I started working, my father, who had been in and out of the hospital, passed away. After my father's death, my uncle and I underwent an adult adoption. When I was 25, 10 years ago, I took over the company and became the president, the high school grad with no prospects." President Matthews did not miss Samantha's muttering. "You really don't know anything. Since Kevin took over, they've been developing and launching hit products one after another. There's no other genius like him. Some of the products they supply to us are exclusive to Carter Foods. After taking over from my uncle, I decided to focus on product development, something I always wanted to do since I wanted to be a researcher. As a result, we have been able to create various hit products, some of which are patented. If those products were no longer supplied, it would be the Matthews Group that would be in trouble. Can you take responsibility if your actions cause us to lose the contract?" Samantha finally seemed to realize she had gone too far and stopped making excuses. "Kevin, I am deeply sorry for my daughter's extremely rude behavior. Please accept my apology. I will make sure to speak with her, so please don't let this affect our business." President Matthews repeatedly apologized to me, but Samantha herself just stood there with a clueless expression. She was only watching her father apologize, showing no sign of thinking she was in the wrong at all. I had no intention of ending the business over this, but even so, her attitude was unacceptable. Despite her father humbling himself for her sake, Samantha herself wasn't moved. "Samantha, your father, the president, is going to such lengths to apologize, and you have nothing to say? Aren't you the one at fault here?" I asked incredulously. Samantha glared at me sharply. "I mean, I didn't know you were the president. If I had known, I wouldn't have done this. It's your fault for not telling me. I'm not in the wrong." Her refusal to see her own fault, even now, was almost refreshing to me. Her attitude turned President Matthews's face even bluer. Listen, I've been meaning to ask. Why are you so fixated on me? You did it in high school, and even now, as adults, you send messages on social media. What's your intent? I've always wondered, I asked Samantha. From the snide remarks during our high school days to the relentless, almost demonic messages she keeps sending through social media, I'm full of questions about what she's aiming for by doing all this. To my surprise, it was President Matthews who reacted more to my words than Samantha, gasping, You've been doing what? Confronted by her father's shocked expression, Samantha awkwardly confessed. Then, Samantha, looking somewhat sheepish, said, I've hated you since high school. Despite being a nerd, you were adored by everyone. I couldn't stand that you were getting more attention than me, even though I'm a president's daughter. It was all just meant to be a bit of harassment. She pointed at me, crying out hysterically. Stunned by such a trivial reason for her actions, I was left speechless. To think that my own daughter could be so malicious. President Matthews, perhaps realizing the extent of his daughter's spitefulness, was holding his head. Feeling the negative atmosphere and the stares from around, I knew I couldn't stay at the event any longer. Mr. Matthews, I'm sorry, but may I be excused for today? I conveyed my intention to leave to President Matthews. President Matthews said, I'm really sorry. I'll come to apologize again later. President Matthews mentioned this, looking disappointed. However, Samantha still looked sulky, with a displeased expression on her face. Thinking this just wasn't going to work, I was about to leave the scene when a woman came running up to me. Mr. Matthews, it seems my husband is leaving, so I'll be heading out as well. The woman who came over to me was my wife, Emily. You are Emily. President Matthews's face turned even paler, and he muttered Emily's name under his breath. Samantha's face, which had been sulky until now, also started to turn pale. Executive Emily Carter, the granddaughter of the chairman of our parent company. They froze upon seeing Emily. It seems you do know who I am, Mr. Matthews, I said. I haven't introduced him to you. This is Kevin Carter, my husband. Contrary to the two pale faces, Emily introduced me with a beaming smile. My wife and I don't like standing out, so we invited only close family and friends to our wedding in Bali. After returning home, we didn't hold a wedding reception and only reported our marriage to our companies. So, President Matthews probably didn't expect that I was Emily's husband. Realizing I'm her husband, both President Matthews and Samantha looked back and forth between Emily and me in surprise. Our love story is actually deeply connected to my uncle. At the time, my uncle, who was a CEO, was close friends with the chairman of the Matthews Group's bar and company. He was consulted about the chairman's granddaughter, who was still single in her late 20s. When asked if he knew any good matches, my uncle suggested, How about my son? He is 3 years older, but a sincere and upstanding young man. He recommended me, over 30 and still single, with no girlfriend. The chairman was keen, and before we knew it, discussions between the chairman and my uncle had advanced, and an arranged meeting was set up without our consent. Honestly, both Emily and I were workaholics and not very interested in marriage. But given the business relationship between our companies, we reluctantly agreed to the meeting. Surprisingly, we hit it off. Despite it being our first encounter, we were amazed at how well we got along. After that, things progressed smoothly, and we moved quickly from dating to marriage. The period from our meeting to marriage was about 6 months. That's how my uncle brought Emily and me together. Moreover, Emily's parents work in different professions and have nothing to do with the Matthews Group. But Emily joined the parent company after graduating from college and is currently working hard as an executive director. Such a way to speak about my husband, huh? Emily said, looking at Samantha. From what I hear, you didn't like him because he was more popular. To harass someone for such a reason, how childish can you be? That's when Samantha, confronted by Emily, was pale and seemed unable to find the words to excuse herself. You haven't shown any sign of apologizing up till now. If you're thinking of excuses, maybe there's something else you should be doing. To think such a person is the future president of a subsidiary. We're really being taken lightly, huh? With her last words, possibly directed at President Matthews, Emily flashed a defiant smile toward him. Like a frog under the glare of a snake, President Matthews began to sweat profusely from his forehead and started shaking uncontrollably. I'm terribly sorry. I had no idea Kevin was your husband. My deepest apologies. My husband has nothing to do with this, Mr. Matthews. Your daughter's behavior is unreasonable. She cannot be recognized as a candidate for future president. Emily's stern words made President Matthews tremble in his apologies as if he was about to prostrate himself on the spot. But Samantha stood there with a pale face, still not uttering a word of apology. Perhaps exasperated by Samantha's attitude, Emily sighed deeply and said, "Even in this situation, not a word of apology? Understood. We'll hold a meeting to discuss the future, taking into account the issue of the next president." What? You can't, Mr. Matthews. Depending on how things go, a dismissal from your position is very much a possibility, so please keep that in mind. After dropping this bombshell on the Matthewses, she turned to me with her usual adorable face, suggesting we leave and linking arms with me to exit the venue. I couldn't help but glance back at the Matthewses. President Matthews had collapsed on the floor, looking utterly devastated. Meanwhile, Samantha seemed to finally grasp her predicament, exclaiming, "Why me? The president's daughter? This is ridiculous." She was ranting hysterically, to think she still couldn't see herself as at fault. I bid farewell to the venue and left with Emily. Afterward, I heard the social gathering was canceled. Indeed, continuing under those circumstances would have been impossible. A few days after the commotion, President Matthews visited our company to apologize. That's when I heard the aftermath. A meeting was held concerning the incident, but somehow the discussion about dismissing President Matthews was postponed. He is competent at his job, which probably played a role in the decision. However, Samantha was dismissed for disciplinary reasons, and her path to becoming the next president was closed, leading to her departure from the company. I was surprised to hear about the disciplinary dismissal regarding this incident, but it turned out that a company-wide inquiry revealed Samantha's arrogant behavior. She was found to have been pushing her work onto others, being a habitual offender of tardiness and absence without leave. Furthermore, she was discovered to have made personal purchases under the guise of business expenses, leveraging her status as the president's daughter. President Matthews was completely unaware and could only hang his head in disappointment upon realizing just how problematic his daughter had been. Samantha, having to repay the misused funds, ended up in debt and was disowned by President Matthews. She is now juggling multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. President Matthews hoped the hardships would turn her into a decent person, but given how deep-rooted her issues were, that might be difficult. As usual, I've been keeping busy every day. I'm currently in the midst of developing a new product and exploring various possibilities. Amidst all that hustle and bustle, some joyful news reached me. Emily's pregnancy has been confirmed. I was overjoyed, but even more so were my uncle and Emily's grandfather, both shedding tears of happiness. The thought of our family growing fills me with excitement. I'm more motivated than ever to work hard and provide for my family every day.